Governments around the world are rolling out digital currencies right now. They say it's about convenience, but could it become the very system the Bible warned about, where no one can buy or sell without permission? Stay tuned with us. Financial expert Samuel O'Brien joined us to break down the blueprint behind the beast system. Welcome to the Endtime Show. Vince Stegall here with Doug Norvell and special guest Samuel O'Brien. We are so happy you've joined us today. We do need your help. Go ahead and hit that share button right now. Make sure this message gets out because we're talking about money today, Doug, and people need to know what's coming. Of course, CBDCs are going to be highlighted in the beast system and so much more. Like I said, we have special guest Samuel O'Brien with us, so we're excited to have a conversation with him, and you all be in on it, and we want your friends and family to know what's developing around them in the United States and around the world. So share this right now. Be sure you engage in the chat. Put a question in the chat for Samuel, and we'll do our best to get to those questions live on the air with him. And then, of course, be sure to give us a thumbs up and a heart. It goes a long way in breaking through the algorithm, getting to your friends and family. So do that right now. Samuel, welcome to the Endtime Show.
Thank you for having me.
Good to finally have you on the show. We talked about some of the live calls we get sometime. We're not going to do that to you today, but maybe next time.
Next time,
we'll
sure.
kind of ease you in on it. Doug?
I just want to say something before we get started and get all serious here.
Okay.
You're going to have to give me a booster seat because I'm always the shortest guy on the panel. Let's go back to that three-shot. Why am I always the shortest? I thought I was average.
I was thinking I've got the smallest screen, so I was feeling a little bit, bad about that. So.
Trying to help compensate for my shortness. But, yeah, in all seriousness, I think this will be a great show for our listeners because we get a lot of questions about financial questions and where to put money for investments and what to do here in the end time, especially when it comes to gold and silver. And so I think this will be a very informative program for our listeners, and we do want you to get involved. So if you can put your questions in the chat, we'll try to get to those. We try to come up with some pretty good questions. I feel like we did, crossing both, I guess, economic realm and the prophetic realm as well. So we're going to talk about that today, and I'm excited. I hope you are too.
I am. When before we get into the questions, Samuel, can you kind of tell our audience about you, where you're from? I think that's very important.
Of course.
You don't sound like you're from Texas, just to, if you didn't know that.
From East Texas.
East Texas. Okay, so just tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm Samuel O'Brien, president of True God Republic. So I was born and raised in Surrey in the United Kingdom. So.
Oh my.
Yeah, it's a little bit different than Texas for sure.
Across the pond.
That's it, just across the pond. But I was fortunate enough to move across to the US about 5 years ago, just pre-pandemic, to open up True God Republic. It's a franchise of our UK company, Direct Bullion in the UK. It's been in business since 2014. So
okay.
We're leading the helm. We're HQ'd in Delray Beach now in Florida.
Not too far from President Trump in Mar-a-Lago.
20 minutes from Mar-a-Lago.
Okay, so you're part of us now. You're over here in the United States. And
yes, sir.
Do you play golf?
Yeah, I do.
Have you ever played at his club?
I have not.
Not yet.
I'd love to. Yeah.
Maybe you will soon.
I'd make a mess of it, but
Yeah.
I'd play it.
So let's just jump right in and see where the conversation go. We obviously have some prepared questions for you, but we're just going to have an organic conversation and see what happens. We've got a clip we want to get to later on, see what your response is about something happening in the UK. But before we get there, if the dollar keeps losing value, of course, that's a big topic everyone wants to know about. What happens to the average person's savings or retirement? People like all of us. Like, what happens? How quickly can all that unravel if the dollar loses its value?
So when we talk about the dollar losing its value, it's lost 10% of its value since the start of the year. So it's the fastest rate that the dollar has devalued since, I think, the 70s. So it's been a pretty fast rate, and a lot of that comes down to this de-dollarization. And what that effectively just means is that there are a lot of countries right now which are moving away from American dollars. Before, after the petrodollar deal, there was a huge demand for US dollars, and that's what afforded us now, I should say, to have this lifestyle in the US, which is, we get access to the best goods at the best rates and whatnot. But since that was weaponized, this is all sort of changed quite rapidly since 2022, when the Russian-Ukraine conflict broke out, and we weaponized the dollar in a huge fashion. It's always kind of been weaponized, to create our order on the world, and through tariffs and wars and stuff like this. But that happened in a more accelerated rate when we seized, I think, $300 billion of U.S. treasuries that were owned by Russia. And since then, a lot of the other countries sort of looked at that and thought, okay, maybe if we upset, we don't have the most favorable relationship with America, maybe we don't want to keep buying U.S. treasuries. So we're seeing less of a demand for U.S. dollars. So in theory, the ripple down effect that's had on American citizens is that the cost of goods is going to rise up. If dollars are weaker, then the cost of goods is going to go up. That's it. So the dollars in your bank account may not go down on paper, but the cost to do something is going to increase. So it's going to be like a silent tax and probably affect the lower to middle classes the most. Probably will benefit the upper class, I think.
Well, we're already seeing that.
Yeah, it's already happened.
Could it get worse?
It could definitely get worse. Yeah, I think that this is effectively just the beginning. I think it could get a lot worse.
I don't like hearing that at the beginning.
Yeah, I don't either.
I've got 3 kids, Samuel. Don't do that to me. It costs a lot to feed everyone in my home.
It does.
Yeah. So with BRICS coming up, that's a big topic that people want to know about. And if the dollar keeps devaluing, how real is this threat that BRICS could replace the U.S. dollar?
I don't know if BRICS will replace the U.S. dollar, but they're challenging it. And I think that's it. It's just a challenge right now. BRICS is Brazil, Russia, India, China, Saudi Arabia. I think last year there was over 30 new applicants to other members wanted to join BRICS. And all they're really looking to do in BRICS is to trade and settle transfers between countries outside of the US dollar. Before that, it would be, okay, if you want to buy oil, okay, you send us dollars. That's it. Now they're looking at other means for that. So there is talks of there being a gold-backed BRICS currency, which is huge. And you look at all those countries: Brazil, Russia, India, China, Saudi Arabia. They're all buying stupendous amounts of gold right now. So, and they've been doing that for the last 5 years. So,
is that part of what's driving that price up
yes.
for gold? Is these other countries that are
100%, definitely this year. This year is not retail investors buying gold and silver. This is central banks, institutions buying more gold than they're buying gold by the tons. When we sell gold, we sell it by the ounces. They're buying it by the ton.
Wow.
That's what moves the price up 60% this year.
Is that part of trying to get away from the petrodollar? They're trying to make themselves where they're not reliable on the U.S. at all, pulling out of that petrodollar type of deal, because we've seen leaders of countries be assassinated because of this, like Gaddafi.
Yeah.
So is that what they're trying to do with BRICS?
Yeah, they're just trying to have less dependence on the U.S.
Yeah.
That's all that essentially comes down to. And I think China is now, if you look since 2022, and especially since all the tariffs started coming into play, and you look at how much gold China is buying publicly. Before, China is a communist private state. They don't really have to publicize how much gold they're buying. Now they're publicly buying tons and tons of gold and saying, look, we don't need the U.S. anymore. We can now settle our trade, in gold. We can settle in yuan. We can settle whatever they want to do. But it is just effectively them flexing their muscles and saying, we don't want to do business with the U.S. anymore. And they are still buying U.S. treasuries, but there's been a turning point in the last few months where now central banks own more gold than they do U.S. treasuries, and that hasn't happened. That hasn't happened before.
So whether it be BRICS or the U.S. dollar or some other currency, is it possible there be one dominant currency that just is worldwide?
Currencies always fail. That's it. Fiat currencies always fail. Before the dollar is the pound. So, and they normally only have a life cycle of 60 to 70 years. So there will be something. I don't know what the next one will be. It could be, if the BRICS movements gets more support behind it, and that gold-backed currency, is backed with, say, a crypto technology, and you have like real settlement behind it, which is transparent, then that could definitely be at the forefront. But that would be pretty catastrophic for the US dollar. It would be disastrous. I
have a totally self-serving question.
Okay.
And I don't even know if I should ask you. So you just tell me yes or no if I can ask.
He does this to me all the time.
I hadn't even considered asking you about this until right now in the moment. Can I ask you about cryptocurrency?
Yeah.
Are you so you've heard of XRP?
Yeah.
So I've heard about XRP potentially replacing the SWIFT code.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Because like XRP, you can buy for $3 in XRP, and if I happen to own some of that, and it does take over the SWIFT code, it could go up in value tremendously. So what's your thoughts on the XRP specifically?
I think that from what I know about XRP, and I'm not an XRP expert by any means, but I know there is a lot of support behind that movement. But the SWIFT system or the American banking system is pretty archaic in the way that it settles stuff. If you send a wire, it takes a while, right? If you send a international wire, it can take 3 to 5 days. Mm-hmm. So effectively,
if it gets delivered, probably.
If it gets delivered,
sometimes weeks.
And you have to go down to the bank. If I want to send an international wire, say to the UK, I have to go down to the bank, sit down there, make an appointment with the teller, go through all these IBAN, SWIFT code, all that. It takes me an hour out of my day to do it, and it will get there in 3 days. Sometimes 2 days. So XRP is supposed to be, faster, more efficient, cost-effective payments. Cross-border payments. So the technology is definitely there to do it. And there is a lot of support behind it. I know the SEC suits were dropped on XRP, and it's gaining mass support. I don't know if it will replace it, in that form, but I think definitely the technology could do that. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry to derail us there.
That's not really a derail though. That was a good question. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Doug.
Yes.
How about the gold standard? A lot of people want to know if we're ever going to get back to the gold standard. What's your perspective on that?
The gold standard worked, right? It worked until we needed to start printing more and more money, which was really after World War I and then World War II. completely obliterated the idea of that, and then now it's now dollars or fiat currency is not backed by anything. So I mean, before that, it did work effectively for thousands of years, right? Where we would deal in gold and silver, and then we would borrow against gold and silver, and now we borrow against promises. It's an IOU now, isn't it? So I think if we get back to our real form of currency, then gold definitely fits that metric, because people understand gold and silver. There is a finite amount of it. You can have the same argument for cryptos, I guess, but I think that there is still a large amount of the population that don't really understand what that would mean. It's like, what do you mean there's a finite amount of Bitcoin or something like that? It doesn't make that much sense to a lot of people, whereas if you have a vault of 100 tons of gold, then you can say, okay, that's what you've got to back that behind. Would it work in today's system? I mean, definitely backing it by gold, it could work, but it would need, we're not going to be bartering with gold. We'd have to have a layer of technology on top of that to help it work. But yeah, I think it could.
So you said you're did you say founder?
Yeah.
Founder and CEO of True Gold Republic.
Yes, sir.
Can I tell people, can we talk about your company for a little bit?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So what does that mean, the True Gold Republic? What do you do?
True Gold Republic, we help Americans, North America, we sell North America. We help people buy and sell physical gold and silver. We can do that for direct delivery. So if people have some money in the bank and they're like, I'd rather convert these dollars, which are devaluing, into gold and silver, then we can deliver that to your door. $5,000, $2,000 worth, $100,000 worth, whatever amount. Or we also help if you have retirement accounts in various aspects. We can help diversify some of that into
so we've worked with a gold company before. We've told our audience about them, but there were some limitations there. You just threw out a number of different amounts there. So it sounds like with True Gold, people can buy physical gold.
Yes, sir.
So you will send them coins or bars or whatever they buy.
Yeah.
You'll actually send them the physical product.
Physical product, yeah. It comes in the mail, FedEx or UPS, whatever's normally fastest in your area. Will turn up normally in 2 to 3 days.
And then you mentioned the IRAs backed by gold. You don't have a $10,000 limit or whatever the amount is.
Yeah, I mean, there are fees that happen with that process. Like you have an account opening fee, you have a storage fee, and these fees are normally the same whether you have $10,000 or $200,000, right?
Sure.
So,
but you don't have a minimum where they have to have...
No, as long as you're happy with the fees and that works out like in your head, if you had, a smaller account or a larger account, as long as you were happy with saying, okay, I only have $15,000 in this retirement account. Some people have like dangling 401ks. I worked at this job for a couple of years. It's there. It's not really doing anything. You can just put that into physical gold and silver. Be happy with the fees on it.
We got to talk after the program.
After, let's do it live.
That sounds just like what I need to talk to you about.
Yeah, and as long as you're happy with the fees that you're going to pay, the storage fees are normally like $100 a year, and a maintenance fee from one of the custodians might be another couple $100 a year. So as long as you're happy, being like, okay. And that percentage isn't too great. If you've only got a few $1,000s, and it's not worth paying almost 10% a year in fees, right? It has to be a little bit more than that. Smaller accounts, sometimes it's worth just taking it out, paying the tax on it, and then you could buy the physical asset and get it delivered.
But it sounds like you're extremely transparent compared to things I've been exposed to in the past.
Yeah.
You're telling us what these fees cost right up front, and it sounds like you really help people understand what that is.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a big industry in the US, and a lot of it is smoke and mirrors. So we just try and lead with that and say, these are the costs that you can pay up front. This is what we make on it. This is what you're going to have to pay to this party. This is what you're going to have to pay to that party. When you sell it back to us, this is what we're going to take off it. And, after that, once you invest the money, then you'll get a statement every month saying, okay, this is what you invested. This is our buyback price today. And you just know where you're at. So it's
or of course they can buy the gold or silver and they have it in their hand, and no one ever knows what happens after that.
That's it. Yeah, but we can still do. We'll still do a statement. We have people call it. We had one of my first or second clients was a lady, and she worked at Walmart, and she invested a large sum of money. For her at the time, it was like $50,000, and she kind of invested. Her son called me up a couple of days later, and he said, my mum's just got some gold coins turning up at her door. Like, what's she doing? And I was like, oh, she wanted to invest into gold and silver. Like, she found us out, and she didn't. He was like, oh, this is ludicrous. Like, a lot of people think it's a lot of people used to think that you're a bit crazy if you're investing in physical gold and silver.
Yeah.
I think things have changed a little bit on that aspect now.
Most definitely.
But she called me up about 2 or 3 months ago. One of the other reps answered. He was like, "Do you remember Wilmer?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think I do remember Wilmer." And he was like, "Yeah, get her on the phone." And so she was like, "I was just in the church, and I was talking to the pastor about my mortgage, and she had like $120,000 left on her mortgage." She was like, "Then we was talking about it, and we had this gold, and I kind of forgotten that I'd owned this gold for this period of time." She was like, "What's the gold worth today?" And it was worth like $140,000. And she was like, "I can pay off my mortgage." And I was like, "Yeah, you can. Like,
wow.
Send us back the gold. We send you a wire or a check." And
amazing.
And that's it. So it doesn't always work that well. It's been amazing in this period. But
let me ask you this: if people have, because I've had this question. Okay, so I have physical gold. Is there a place where I can use that physical gold? That's one of the questions everybody always asks me. Is if we buy gold, where would we use gold? Who takes gold?
There are certain states now that have accepted gold and silver to become legal tender, which means that, by law, you can accept it for method of payment, much like you would accept like a Visa or a MasterCard. It's not going to be that applicable because you're not going to walk in there with, an ounce of gold, which is now, $4,000.
Right.
That would be like walking into buying a packet of sweets with a $100 bill. Like, you're just not going to do that, right?
Right.
But that is coming. I think there's five states now where gold and silver is legal tender. I think that is going to expand. And
is Texas one of those yet? Because I've heard them talk about it.
They're talking about it. Florida about 3 months ago was legalized, and there's different concepts coming out. We met the guys over at Goldback. I don't know if you've seen those Goldback notes. They're like a dollar bill.
Yes.
Wish I brought one, but they're made of solid gold, and even though they have a high premium on them, they have a good exchange on them as well. So you can always like change it in for like a quarter ounce of gold or something like that, whatever the monetary value is. Okay. And you'll see certain shops now, especially in Florida and like in Utah, that have on the door, "We're accepting goldbacks now." So you could go in there with your goldback note and accept payment. So
nice.
It's coming, yeah. But I think that if you're looking at actually spending gold and silver, gold's so expensive now, you're probably not going to spend gold, but silver is a lot more barterable. That's a better form to sell.
Well, Samuel, you and your team are prepared to work with end-timers out there, so we want to tell people you can go to www.endtimegold.com, www.endtimegold.com, and you and your team will help talk people through whatever their questions are about purchasing gold or silver, whether it be a retirement account or buying the physical thing. They can go to www.endtimegold.com and get more information on that. And you guys are on standby, ready to help now.
Yeah. We have a few different guides. Like people, our team can send you more information on it if you want to learn about either of the processes. It's not. The gold prices are going up, but there's not an immediate rush to do anything. It's just about learning about it and starting somewhere. I think we speak to people every single day, and they're like, "I wish I'd bought this last year, 2 years ago, 5 years ago." And it's the opportunity clock, I guess. It goes off, and you kick yourself.
So there was Trump tariff talk today. Could his tariff and trade policies actually save the dollar, or from your perspective, is that a lost cause?
Well, we'll see how today goes. I think
Today's not over
in the Supreme Court, but it looks so far like it's brought tremendous amounts of revenue into the U.S., which has been obviously good. But then at the same time, tariffs do increase the cost of goods that are coming into the U.S. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword. I don't know if it's effectively going to save the dollar. I think what it is doing is obviously it's, again, weaponizing the dollar. We're saying that if you don't play nicely with us, then we're going to throw tariffs on you. And that again will probably build more steam to the BRICS argument, where they're like, we're tired of Trump bullying us and saying, okay, China. Most recently, I'm sure you saw about the mineral rights, and they didn't want to sell minerals to the U.S. and they, that was why we saw the gold price going up to $4,400, because was another tariff and trade war that happened, and now that seems to have cooled off, prices to come down again. But these things are going to keep coming up. So I do think that creates more geopolitical uncertainty, over anything. And tariffs, although they increase revenue for the U.S., again, cost of goods are going to come up, imports are going to rise. That's the other end of it. So no, I don't think it's going to save the dollar.
How much do you know about the mineral rights and what that is actually? Because that's something that, we've heard him talk about with the Ukraine. At first, they didn't want to sell us their mineral rights either, but then they kind of worked a deal out. Now we're hearing about China, Japan, South Korea, I think, is another one. But can you explain what that is? What are mineral rights?
Minerals are effectively just like rare earth metals that we need for, especially like in today's industrial era with like AI tech especially coming through. Like they're building these huge data centers like here in Texas as well. Right? I think there's like a $5 trillion project going up here.
Yeah, there's one right down the road from us actually on 190.
I'll have to check it out.
It's like 20. It's like 20. So right here, remember, one of the Endtimers is an engineer in the local area, and he's like, there's literally dozens of these data centers going up around here.
So right now there is a huge like surge on demand for like rare earth metals and minerals and stuff like that to obviously build all this technology that's going up. So if you're in a position where your resources are cut off, right, then it puts you in in a state of weakness. So that's why it's obviously very important to get that. Yeah. So that's why that obviously that China's saying, okay, well, we're going to keep all of our stuff for ourselves, and we don't want anyone to sell to you. It's almost like creating like a trade war, really, and saying we're gonna support our defenses, and you can't have any of it.
Yeah. Okay, that helps because I know there's people out there that have asked me that question too, and I'm like, I can't answer that. I don't know. I'm a prophecy guy, not a mineral guy. But I've also heard that silver is about to be on the climb upward, and that right now is one of the best times to buy silver because of that, because of the rare earth minerals. They're about to start making some things, including electric car batteries are going to have more silver in those. Have you heard that, and is that true that it's a good time to buy silver right now?
Yeah, I mean, silver is up nearly 60% year to date, so it's already gone up a big amount. I think today it's still very, very high. So silver is probably more. So when you look at gold dynamics and like what price is gold, you're looking at like central banks buying, investor demand, and jewelry is like a big puller as well. India and stuff like that, they buy like a lot of jewelry, and there is some. Gold is used in technology, but it's not really moving the needle that much. When you look at silver is more so driven by industrial demand, above anything else. So when you look at what we're doing right now, silver is the best conductor of electricity in the world. So that's why data centers, electric batteries, solar panels, everything are using ounces of silver at a time. And we're now in a period where we haven't been developing this much since hundreds of years, right? Where we've seen this huge push and demand for silver. Silver's also a bit tricky to mine. It's kind of found on the topsoil a lot of the time. So it's normally a byproduct of when they're mining for like other materials, they'll find silver. So they can't really just dump more silver on the market and be like, okay, we can bring the price of it down. So supply and demand dynamics are definitely more important when it comes to silver. If there's a huge demand increase, which we're seeing and probably will see over the next couple of years, 5 years, 10 years, then you can probably imagine an ounce of silver will go up to $100, $200, $300. It could be even higher than that. I have no idea.
Yeah. Wow.
We shall see. So with the stocks and cryptos and metals all on the rise, is that a good sign or is that a bad sign for our financial system?
Stocks, cryptos, and metals all rising at the same time is just a weird situation, right? Normally, I've been in precious metals for 12 years, and up until like 3 or 4 years ago, we would always say, well, gold and silver are normally negatively correlated to the financial markets, right? So if the stock market's going down, gold's normally going up. It's normally like a good hedge, right? But what we've seen in the last couple of years is that everything's going up. And I think what that really shows is metals and gold and silver are going up because people are moving away from from the dollar, right? That's like kind of what we're seeing, is that people are looking at different instruments other than the US dollar to put their money into, which is why gold and silver are going up. Stocks are obviously just going up because we just keep printing more and more money. That's going back into the system. It's going back into the big companies.
Yeah.
Well, Samuel, we appreciate it. You're going to stick around for the rest of the show, so we're excited about that. Wait until we ask him about who he thinks the Antichrist is. You're not going to want to miss that. We won't do that to Samuel, but stick around. We've got a lot more to get into. We'll be right back after the break.
A reminder of the breaking news this hour. At least 22 people are reported to have died in a strike in Gaza.
The rise of Islam.
We're trying to bring answers for so many families desperately.
Is the Israel-Hamas-Iran conflict World War III? So let's talk about the four horsemen. What do these horses symbolize? These are the four spirits of the heavens which go forth from standing before the Lord of all the earth. In the end time, the true people of God will not be weak, anemic, and defeated. These prophesied events are revealing we are quickly approaching the time of the Great Tribulation right now.
Now streaming on OnlySource and available to order at endtime.com/green. Go to endtime.com/green or call 800-ENDTIME.
What if you could understand Bible prophecy? Dave Robbins, the host of the Endtime Show's TV and radio programs, is holding a free prophecy conference near you. Gain peace and understanding about what the Bible says concerning end-time prophecy. Call 1-800-ENDTIME or go to endtime.com/events to see when Dave will be in a location near you.
Welcome back to the Endtime Show. Vince Stegall here with Doug Norvell and Samuel O'Brien. We're so happy to have him as a special guest. We're talking about CBDCs and all sorts of things. We're going to get into the mark of the beast, world government, and I don't know. He may have an opinion on who the Antichrist is. We'll see how that develops. But you can ask your question in the chat. We'll do our best to cover everything that comes in today. And then, of course, we have several questions that Doug and I came up with talking about what we would want to know when we have a financial expert from right here in the studio. And we're going to cover all those. But I do want to remind you real quickly, Dave and Jana Robbins will be in Thibodaux, Louisiana this weekend. You can go to endtime.com/events for all the details on that. As you all heard earlier this week, Dave Robbins was appointed as the tactical prophecy advisor to the Israel Defense Forces Jerusalem Battalion. He's the first one in the history of Israel. So
he got dog tags and everything.
He's got it all, and so this is monumental. And he'll be telling that story in Thibodaux, Louisiana, for the first time in person. So if you're in the area, you'll want to be making plans to be there. Endtime.com/events, or give us a call at 800-ENDTIME. We'll be happy to help you out over the phone on that. And also, you can go to we're talking about True Gold Republic with Samuel O'Brien here. You can go to www.endtimegold.com. And they have a phone number there as well. So it's not just a website. You can go there, get their phone number, call and talk to one of their representatives. Somebody was asking, can I buy 1 ounce of gold if that's all I want? Yes, you can do that at www.endtimegold.com. And there's a whole lot more you can do there as well. So Samuel, right before the break, we were talking about the rise of the financial systems. I want to talk about the tech and the financial power and how that's concentrated on a few companies. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad? It feels dangerous.
Yeah.
I'm wondering what your perspective is through the lens that you have with your expertise in finances.
Well, I think that when you have a concentration of power in just one place, I think that's normally always pretty dangerous, right?
Yeah.
And I think especially if you're looking at big tech now, you're looking at NVIDIA just become the first $5 trillion market cap company. It's an insane amount of power, and they're just engulfing every other company out there that's like showing any growth. They'll just buy it up. Same with like Meta, Google. Like it's all seems to be very focused in one part, and I think that the federal government has so much input in these huge institutions as well that I think it just comes all to a part of control. I think I was talking to you just before the show about Elon Musk talking about how he sort of saved X from being another one of these companies which is controlled by the federal government, and all the other social media platforms out there are all controlled by, in theory, the federal government with that input. So I think it's the same when it comes to financial parts, is that you're still looking at control coming from the federal government or from these private institutions, which is probably more selfish than anything. So yeah, I think it's scary.
Would you consider yourself a prophecy expert?
No, sir.
But you know some prophecy.
Yes, sir.
You've seen some of our episodes. You've had conversations with others about prophecy. When you hear about like big government, big control like this, does that make you think like this is the end of time, like stuff that you've heard about, or is it just another day for you?
No, I think that it definitely, the fact that we have, well, especially going to this age, right, of AI and huge control, Neuralink, all these things coming through, and I think that puts chills on anyone's back, thinking like, okay, well, this is definitely going to change. And I think when you're talking about, which we'll get into a little bit more in depth, but with the CBDCs and the role that could have, that does obviously alarm me and think, okay, well, we could be in a different phase than we're in right now. Is that end times? Potentially. Yeah, I think it's.
Sounds like a good time for the clip. What do you think?
I'm ready to go to the clip if you are.
Yeah, I am.
So, Christians, they are connecting this economic control system with the mark of the beast. Okay, I don't know how familiar with all of that. We don't have to get into that. But the mark of the beast from Revelation 13, and then the UK, I'm sure you've heard about this, but we got this clip we want you to react to if you're willing to. They're requiring this digital ID. So let's take a look at that clip and then get your reaction to that.
For too many years, it's been too easy for people to come here, slip into the shadow economy, and remain here illegally. Because, frankly, we've been squeamish about saying things that are clearly true. It's not just that it's not compassionate left-wing politics to rely on labour that exploits foreign workers and undercuts fair wages, but the simple fact that every nation needs to have control over its borders. We do need to know who is in our country. Our immigration system does need to be fair if we want to maintain that binding contract that our politics is built on. Otherwise, it undermines trust, undermines people's faith that we're on their side, and their belief that the state can and will work for them. And that is why today I am announcing this government will make a new free-of-charge digital ID mandatory for the right to work by the end of this Parliament. Let me spell that out. You will not be able to work in the United Kingdom if you do not have digital ID. It's as simple as that.
You will not be able to work in the United Kingdom if you do not have digital ID. He's presented it in a way that is, they're trying to stop illegal immigration. And so this is a positive thing. We need to stop that. So therefore, you have to get a digital ID or you won't be able to work. That's for everyone. Being from the UK, how does that feel to you?
I think that it's the same. We don't want everyone knowing what we're doing, and I think that no one wants to feel controlled, right? You don't want to. It's a bit like, if I was coming to this interview today and you said, okay, let me see all of your bank statements, let me see all of your Google search history and stuff like that, and I would say, you're a lovely guy, but I'm not going to do that, and I think that's when it comes down to like digital profiling and keeping everything in control, is that we just don't want to be in a position. We're all adults here. We're not children. We don't need to be manipulated like children. There's no need for that sort of control. If the intention is good, then fair enough. But I just don't think that we need to exert any of that. I've seen other countries now. I think it's in Japan, where you can't buy a train ticket without biometric facial ID now. And that'll be the case when you're filling up the truck, to do that. And it's going to keep on going in that passion, in that in that route, and it's just more and more control over the people.
You said you came to the United States about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So raised in London area. Have you gone back since then?
Yeah, I've been back twice this year.
Okay,
Yeah.
so from your perspective, being raised there, of course, around everyone you were raised around, your family and such, how do they process something like this? Because I don't know how much we're going to get into it, but before the show we were talking about what you've witnessed personally, how things have changed dramatically. So what is that like? Did they hear this and go, yeah, this is a good thing because it'll stop illegal immigration?
No, I think that London and the UK is probably more divided than it's ever been. I don't think I've ever experienced it like growing up that anything was probably more polarized than what it is right now. Most of the people that I associate with, my friends, are very anti like what's going on right now, and probably more pro at least trying to clean up the country, clean up the image. You know, growing up, I mean, it was kind of one of the refreshing things that I found coming to the US is that you come to the US and everyone's very patriotic, everyone's very proud to be an American, and I loved that. I was like, you know what, it's your country, you should be able to own that. And every other country, it felt like we're also patriotic. You go to France and they're very proud to be French, and Germans.
I have a few French friends that live in Dallas, and they're very proud to be French.
But if you had like my father put a Union Jack flagpole outside our yard like as a kid, and some people would be like, that's racist to do that, because you're not inclusive of everyone else. And it just got went from like that, where it's like somewhat unacceptable, to like now if you are hosting a St. George's flag or a Union Jack, then you're now labeled a racist. And it's just become like such a weird mess of like woke ideology and pro-Islam and pro-immigration, and it's just it's gone to a messy point, and everyone's feeling that. Everyone's obviously upset about it. Everyone's feeling unsafe. You can see on social media that London isn't a safe place anymore. I met a guy when I was in LA, and he was from a couple of towns along from me in Surrey, and he was like, I can't wear a watch in London anymore because you'll just go out there and you'll be robbed straight away. It's just, it shouldn't be like that. It definitely shouldn't be. It should be a safe place, but it's knife crime is up, rape is up. It's just it's a mess. People aren't happy. People are getting tackled by inflation as well. So I've just noticed that.
But see, that's kind of one of the things, I mean, talking prophecy to you for just a second, one of the things that we believe because of the mark of the beast system and how they'll produce it, it appears as though the governments create chaos so that they can come up with the answer to the chaos and put more control on you. Yep. And it's almost like that's what they've done. They've had open borders before, just like they've tried to do here in the United States, an influx of people come into the country, crime goes up, and then they say, to stop crime, now we're going to do this. It's kind of like 9/11 introduced the fact that you almost got to strip down at the airport to get on a plane because of all that, and they took a lot of freedoms away. So with this is one of the questions that I've had in the past, so I want to ask you this, since you know about the precious metals and things. With them being able to say, okay, now you have to have a digital ID, we're going to be able to track you, we're going to be able to do everything. If that is tied to a digital currency, they could enforce sanctions on you personally to keep you, if you're not falling in line, like say they have a new virus that comes out and they want you to take the vaccine, but you don't want to take the vaccine, and they say, well, since you didn't do that, you're locked down. We saw that in Canada with the truck drivers where they didn't want the ID there. So with gold and silver, and especially if you have it on you, they wouldn't be able to do that, right?
No.
And no tracking involved in that either. Like where you spent your money, they're not going to be able to track.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's one of the reasons, folks, why this would be a good currency to have during the end time. So I just want to bring that up because it appears that is where we're moving, more control. And if we have freedom in our financial markets, that's one of the things we don't believe here in the U.S. that we'll be under the mark of the beast system, because we believe that in the Bible it shows the great wings of the eagle helping the woman who is Israel. We believe that symbolically is talking about the United States of America, because In Daniel chapter 7, it talks about these beasts.
Oh, tell me about Daniel 7, Doug.
Okay, quickly.
We've got like 1 minute.
I got like a minute to say
You got to
this.
tell him about this.
So, being from the UK, that the British lion is their symbolic animal, right? In Daniel chapter 7, he sees a lion and it has eagle's wings. And he watches until the wings are plucked out and it's made to stand on the feet of a man, and the heart of a man is given to these wings of this eagle. We believe that Daniel was seeing the birth of the United States of America because he tells us these animal symbols are symbols of kingdoms. And they'll be here when Jesus comes back to set up his kingdom on the earth. It's a lion, a bear, a four-headed leopard, and then a beast with 10 horns that he couldn't recognize, along with the wings of this great eagle that were separated from the lion. So we believe those are modern-day nations in the Bible.
We'll have to get Samuel's reaction on the other side of the break. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Many people argue America is not mentioned in the prophecies of the Bible. But they will miss so much about the coming events that will happen in the end time if they don't get that understanding. What do these beasts symbolize? That's what we need to answer. Because if we can't understand what these beasts symbolize, there's no point in even studying this, right? If you don't believe that America is mentioned in the Bible, you're going to be stuck when it comes to figuring out all these prophecies. But once you understand this, America has a prophesied future. It's given to us in the Bible. And the America will not be part of the world government, but we're going to be protecting Israel against the world government all the way to the second coming of Jesus Christ.
Now streaming on OnlySource and available to order at endtime.com/America. Go to endtime.com/America or call 1-800-ENDTIME.
Welcome back to the Endtime Show. Vince Stegall here with Doug Norvell and special guest Samuel O'Brien from True Gold Republic. You can learn more about his company at www.endtimegold.com. They are prepared to help the end timers learn more about buying physical gold, physical silver, transferring your retirement account into a gold-backed retirement account. All that's available. There's no limits like some of the limitations we've had in the past. That's not there with them. Also, you can actually buy the physical gold and have it in your hand through the mail. So buy the gold and they'll deliver it right to your house for you. www.endtimegold.com. Now, we've been talking about a lot of different things, but right before the break, we were getting into Daniel 7 and what those beasts represents, and of course we talked a little bit more about that in the break. Samuel, do you have any response to that? I know that's not what you're here to talk about, but just curious.
Threw him a curveball.
Being from the UK, any thoughts on that?
No, of course, yeah, I can see the similarities between England, America, Germany on the fourth rise. So, yeah, I can definitely draw parallels towards that.
All right.
And so from that, in Revelation 12, it shows these wings of this eagle helping this woman who is symbolically Israel. It says that she has 12 stars around her head. Symbolically, that's the 12 tribes of Israel, and that she gives birth to the Messiah, to a male child that the devil tries to kill, but God takes him up to his throne. So it explains all that in Revelation 12. Revelation 12:14 says that these wings help Israel during the time of the Great Tribulation. So back to my statement that I was making about the gold being something that you could invest in, we don't believe that we would be under the full authority of the mark of the beast, because if we were, we would not be able to help Israel during that time. There would be sanctions put on the U.S. to where it would kind of tie our hands, and we believe, based on that scripture, that we're there helping Israel. It goes on to show those other beasts in Revelation 13. And of course, there were no chapter breaks in the Bible originally, so you just kind of flow through that. It goes into all those beasts that Daniel saw individually in Daniel 7 to a one world global beast. And this beast has 7 heads and 10 horns. And it's got the mouth of the lion, which we believe is Great Britain. So we believe there's a possibility that it could be the Antichrist could actually come from the UK or from England, having the mouth on the line. It says that mouth speaks great things against God and blasphemies and things like that. And then it has the body of the leopard and the feet of the bear. So Russia's in there, Germany's in there. It appears Great Britain is all in that world government, but the eagle is helping the woman. And so we don't believe we'll be part of that one world government. So I know we've kind of blown your mind with some of that, but it really is, when you look at it, it makes sense, especially as we see things moving the way they are. The other day we talked about King Charles meeting with the Pope. In Revelation 13, the leader, the Antichrist, has a spiritual advisor called the false prophet. And we believe whoever has the office of the Pope at the time the Antichrist is revealed, he will be the false prophet, and he'll be the spiritual advisor. And what we see is a rise of the Holy Roman Empire in this end time again. It rises back up with all these countries come together as one, with one political leader and one spiritual leader. And so it was very interesting the other day because King Charles and Pope Leo were the two that met. Well, the original Holy Roman Empire in 800 AD was Charlemagne, which was Charles the Great, and Pope Leo III, and they established the Holy Roman Empire. So we are in a unprecedented time. We use that word all the time, but here we are at a pivotal point in the world, and it seems like when you hear things come out of the UK like that could be where the mark of the beast system begins.
Yeah.
If they tie it to a digital ID. And Tony Blair is a huge proponent of this. He is pushing that, especially through the COVID epidemic and things. And so with those things, that's why I think the mark of the beast system and everything trying to get us out of that as Christians to stay away from the digital money currency and invest in things like precious metals so that we're not bound by something like that.
Yeah, I mean, when you buy physical gold and silver, then you're effectively taking it off the grid, right? You're taking it out of the system. Anything that's in an account or in a stock portfolio is like tracked, reported, traced, all that sort of stuff. Once you take delivery of it, like we don't report it to any federal oversight or any federal government agency. So if we are in that situation where everyone else would be exposed, right, and you would be obviously safe with what you have with gold and silver. And what's also similar to that recently is like with the sanctions that we imposed on Russia, and everyone thought the ruble was going to collapse, but the Russian economy has actually been doing pretty well since the war. And I think a large portion of that comes down to the fact that they had tremendous amounts of gold reserves, physical gold reserves. And the only way that we could physically have sanctioned that is to march to Moscow and take that out their vault. And we're not going to do that.
Right.
And you can view yourself as like a mini Russia in that respect and say, okay, well, if we did have sanctions imposed on us people, then if you had your physical gold and silver in your hands, then you're free of that. And I think that's very empowering. That's why everyone should own it.
So can we talk about the control aspect then? Because with digital ID, like the clip we just watched, and with central bank digital currency, everything's digital. And so there's a tremendous amount of control. And like Doug has mentioned, we talk about that in the mark of the beast system. What's your perspective? Obviously take prophecy out of it, but the perspective from a financial situation on control. Do you think some of these systems are being in place so they can actually control people? Like we see the social credit score in China, they're tracking things and they can shut you down like that if they want. Is this about control ultimately?
I think everything normally comes down to controls, especially when it's big governments. They want to control the people, and as you were saying earlier, there will be chaos before that happens. So right now there may not be a necessity to control people, but could that come, like if, say, the dollar collapsed and we need to control people's finances, then would they do that? Absolutely, of course they would do that. So, I think it definitely comes down to control, especially with, the social credit scoring thing is obviously happening in China already. It's a communist country. Would it happen here overnight? No, but could it come in the future? I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. I think if it worked there to some degree, then they would look at that and say, okay, maybe we'll try that out. Maybe we'll start controlling people. We're already kind of being controlled through social media and through all these different algorithms that's already going on. We just are not. It's not right in front of us. So it's just more and more stuff will control us in the future.
Sure. Earlier you mentioned the central banks buying records amounts of gold. What message do you think what do you think that sends about the future of the dollar and the future of global finance, generally speaking?
I think that is just the big message saying that we don't really trust US dollars anymore. US dollars used to be good. They used to be the best, the most trustworthy place. If you had wealth as a central bank, as a nation, then you would buy US treasuries and you would store it in US dollars and you'd feel very comfortable about that. The fact that they're moving away from that is basically them saying, we don't like the control that you're exerting over us anymore. And also, your dollars aren't really good anymore. So, they're devaluing. They're not as good as they used to be. So we don't really want them anymore. So that's why you're seeing that happen in a big shift now. And that shows that there's a big drop in trust and value of the US dollar.
So what I'm hearing and what we're talking about now at this point, this would be a way, we get that question all the time, Vince. Why would Christians do that? We're trying to show you why that would be a good investment. And I think, I'm interested in doing it for myself, but if we get into a situation like that in the end time where sanctions are put on us, or there's control with digital IDs and we have physical gold or silver on us in our possession, like Samuel was saying a while ago, we would be like a mini Russia where those sanctions wouldn't really affect us. We're talking about all these different states that are beginning to accept gold and silver as currency. And so it looks like that would be a good system. People are always saying, what should we invest in for the future? And is there anything wrong as Christians to do that? And there's absolutely nothing wrong with it because we're preparing like Joseph did for the famines, and God gives us the ability to do these things. And so having this kind of information is very, I think, vital to our listeners today. And learning as much as we can, I think, from Samuel, from his company, is a very good thing for those out there.
Absolutely. Again, they can do that by going to www.endtimegold.com. Samuel, I think it was before the show, we were talking about CBDCs. Yep. And, of course, Trump said we're not going to do that. And you started telling me about the system.
Yeah.
Can we talk about that for everyone to hear about?
Of course. Yeah, so central bank digital currencies was obviously a huge thing, especially over the last couple of years. And that was because I think there was 198 nations that were looking into a central bank digital currency. All that effectively is, like, a central bank is like, ours is the Fed, right? You have the ECB, different central banks which control effectively the monetary policy. Or a central bank digital currency is programmable and all that sort of stuff is coming out. And those are the concerns that were faced. And I think that's why Trump obviously took a stand on that a few months ago, and he said that we're not doing CBDCs here in the United States, and he kind of ruled that out as a hard line. However, in the same breath, there is now a huge up-ramp of these stable coins, right, that we're seeing, which is kind of similar, right, to a CBDC. So you're looking at like USDT, which is like Tether is the biggest one. I think they have 300 million users of Tether right now, so it's a big platform. And what a stable coin effectively is it's backed by a US Treasury bill or a dollar, so it's a one-to-one back-in. And really, it's just like an on-ramp for people to buy crypto. So people can, it's more difficult to put dollars into a Bitcoin or Ethereum. People prefer stable coins so they can move between cryptocurrencies and exchange it. So it's like getting into the play arena for cryptos is to buy a stable coin. But the only problem that I foresee, two facets really, is that one is kind of unregulated, right? So there is 200 different stable coins out there. They're not all going to be ethical, right? One of them may not be. You're exchanging. You give me a dollar, I give you a token, right? And then I can buy treasury bills with that or whatever I want to do with that. But I don't know who's auditing me for that. So who's to say that when you come back and say, okay, I've got a dollar, I can give you a dollar. But what if 100 people come back to me? There may be a run on that, right? So the promise is that it's always going to be worth one-to-one. But we saw when Silicon Valley Bank went down, that USDC went down to 88 cents on the dollar, so it wasn't exchangeable. So there's definitely some fragility around these stable coins in themselves, is that there could be some fraud going on around it. there could be a run on it, or it could be a financial crisis on it, where if financial crisis really is that everyone just wants their money out. So if everyone wants their money out, the stable coins, they may not be able to deliver on that bill.
Yeah.
So I think that's the part of it, but you've got the Genius Act that's coming into play for that. And I think that really how that could tie into CBDCs is that they have the same technology that a CBDC could have. It can be, there is a public ledger on every crypto transaction that happens, right? So that could very easily be programmable, tracked, reported, traced, could be controlled, and it could have everything that we feared around it, but just in the guise really of a stable coin. And these are all owned by these private companies that we don't know who owns it, which have huge input from the federal government. So it kind of looks like the same thing, just without the Fed basically saying, hey, we're doing a CBDC. We're doing stablecoins instead.
Yet again, we need 2 hours, Doug. I know people are going to be mad at us for that. We're out of time. Samuel, thank you so much for joining us. Be sure to go to www.endtimegold.com. You can buy 1 ounce of gold. You can convert your retirement accounts. Go with True Gold Republic. Thank you for joining us. We'll be right back here tomorrow. God bless.